So today I am super excited to welcome to the show someone I've actually met in real life here in London, though she lives over in the States, Wendy Mata, who calls herself a bruja, which is actually Mexican or Spanish for witch, and curandera, which is healer. And also Wendy is a lunar priestess. So Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and so good to see you again.
So good to see you. So, Wendy, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. I'm going to touch on the astrology for the weekend and ask you for your response to it. But first of all, tell us, what does a lunar priestess do and how do you become one? I feel like I am a lunar priestess, or I should be, but maybe I need to go and study somewhere. Tell us about being a lunar priestess. What does it mean?
I will definitely say that you are. So in my case, it's because a lot of the studies in healing that I received when I was going through my training in Mexico were centered around the moon.
And received from?
So we do a lot of ceremonies, specifically during the full moon. So in traditional astrology, I see that a lot of people and a lot of witches in general, especially here in the US, I see a lot of people centering their practices and their rituals and their ceremonies around the new moon, which makes a lot of sense. But for us, it's very different. Like all our bigger practices or traveling between worlds and deep meditations and healings and card cuttings and anything that we're going to do, we keep it into the full moon. So we're more of a group of people that are really connected into the full moon, and we base our lives on the full moon. We are also very affected, which I think I don't want to say every witch, but a lot of witches are very affected. Like in full moons, I'm awake all night, right? Like I wish I could sleep, but I can never sleep. But it is more the fact that we are centered on the practices of working with the moon, and it's also working on the practices of Ixchel, that for some is the goddess of the moon in the Maya tradition. I did my initiations in the Maya tradition, as well as other traditions through my grandmother because she was Toltec. But some of my studies were on the Maya area. I was initiated in Mérida, Yucatan, Mexico. And I don't necessarily practice all the things that were passed to me through those practices because I've learned a lot of things. I love traveling. I love observing different practices that give me permission to practice their beliefs, and I love combining. Plus, Mexico is such as a big range of knowledge, and for somebody that I'm a fifth generation witch and healer. Like we have practices for pretty much everywhere, but definitely for me, it's more the fact that everything is around the full moon.
Okay. So for anyone who's listening, who's thinking, I quite like the idea of being a lunar priestess, what are a couple of things they can do at the full moon, which is actually going to be coming up not long after we go to air? It's actually not this week. It'll be next week, I think, the time of recording. What are a couple, say, 3 lunar priestessy things people can do without going through the whole trading? Like 3 ways to connect with the full moon in a kind of a magical priestessy way.
So the first will be, which is very aligned to my tradition, it will be that any practices that require what I call deep magic, anything that needs a little bit of a push, anything that needs a little bit of a vortex to make it happen, the full magic will be really good. So I actually keep a list of the things that I want to work on the full moon. So I don't just show up on the full moon and say, this is what I'm going to do today. I actually keep a list, and I save my list of things that are important for the month, and I work on them on the full moon.
So can I stop you? Sorry to interrupt, but before we move on from that, say someone's listening and they're like, I really want a new job, like they've just lost their job, or they hate their job, or whatever. What would be something they could do at the full moon to work on it, so to speak?
So for our tradition, one thing that you could do for the full moon that is related to new jobs or abundance in general will be to take a bath. So what you will do is that you will take some fresh rosemary and some fresh basil, and you will take a mortar and pestle and macerate a little bit both, and then add them into your water. If you have a bathtub, you can do that in a bathtub, or if you don't have a bathtub, which a lot of people doesn't have one, what you can do is that you can take the herbs, you can get into the shower, you can take the herbs, and then you can just rub the herbs around your body. This is like a very traditional curandera bath. You can rub around your body herbs, and you do two things. You ask the herbs to remove any energy from you that is the opposite to what you want. So if you're looking for a new job and you're living in a space of lack, you can ask specifically the rosemary, can you please remove the lack of my body? Or can you please release any fear that I may have about not finding a job? And then after that, what you do is that you ask herbs, can you please activate in me what I need to attain, whatever I'm looking for? Because one of our practices is full moon baths. So that definitely will be something that people could do.
I love that idea. So could that work for someone who has a job that they like well enough, but they're starting up a side hustle, for example? It doesn't have to only be, I hate my job or I don't have a job. Is that basically for abundance, the rosemary and the basil?
Yeah, it will be definitely basically for abundance. It is better if we have a definition of what we actually need and want, because if we have a target, just like with everything in magic, right? If we have a target of what we're looking for, then we walk towards that. But we can also do just an overall bath of abundance. Like maybe you're not looking for a job, but you just need a little bit of cash or a little bit of push or more customers or some sort of flow, right? That is something that you can do.
The rosemary and basil bath.
Yes. And my grandmother, she used to do with plants. She used to put plants on her shoes. So one of the things that I started doing, this is not a spell that she passed to me necessarily, but she used to put certain plants on the bottom of her shoes or on the soles. So soles, is that in English, right?
Soles, yeah.
Yeah, to absorb certain negative energies. And what I have been doing now for me is that if I don't have like that day, the time to take an entire hour bath and be like connecting to the herbs and, rubbing my body with the rosemary, is that I take some of the herbs and I put them on my shoe. So during the day, inside of my shoes, so during the day, I'm walking around and I have the herbs and I'm doing the same mentally while I'm also taking care of my daughter or my business or doing whatever I have to do. That is also almost like a shortcut, but it's still very effective.
Okay, so I know I've got some rosemary in the fridge. I don't have any basil. Can I just use rosemary when I have my bath tonight? Because we're actually recording this at the full moon in June.
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. It's one of my favorite plants, rosemary. And it grows like wild outside of our house. We have so many basils and so many rosemaries. So yeah, definitely.
And can it be an abundance of anything good, or is it just for money?
It can be an abundance of anything. It can be really whatever you need in your life. Rosemary has that ability of bringing that flow. I will specifically use it for money, just because in our tradition is like, it has the layer of calling money and calling abundance and calling jobs and calling opportunities. And we believe that if we use something as a symbology, it carries the power of the other thousands of people and the other thousands of ancestors that have used that symbol for the same thing. But you can definitely use it for any kind of abundance.
That's lovely. That's like in chanting, which I do a lot of. When you do a chant that's been chanted for millennia, you're kind of harnessing the power of the chanting that's been done in the past. So I've also got coriander in the fridge. Is that good for anything?
Coriander?
Yeah. What do you call it? What do you call it in America? You call it
Coriander. It's not like cilantro, but it's like
cilantro. You call it cilantro. Is that good for anything, or is that just anything?
That's actually really good for obstacle removal. So if there's anything that is in your path, you can write in a paper what you don't want, and you can just put the cilantro, or you can also use rosemary. That's also good for it, or basil, and you can ask the herbs to absorb the obstacles on it. Or you can write it in a paper, put a cup of water, and then drop the herbs in it and ask it to remove it. That's also really good because a lot of our practices are based on obstacle removal. Like that's one of our main rituals or hechizos, we call them, that we practice.
This is so brilliant, Wendy. So can I get the rosemary and the cilantro or coriander, rub it together and then have it in my bath?
Yes.
And it will remove obstacles and bring abundance.
Yeah, you can.
Amazing.
Now, if you wanted something like really, really strong, What I will do is that I will recommend 3 days of baths. So we have different rituals that are from 3 to 7 days of baths, or some people does up to 21. But what I will do first, and I will do the first for obstacle removal, day 1. Day 2, I will do the one with rosemary, and then day 3, I will do one with roses for magnetism. So that you are removing the obstacles, and then you're calling in the energy of what you're looking, and then you're magnetizing your field so that it's attracting what you need. I will do that on the 3rd. And I probably will even add a little bit of honey or any vanilla in that's like that feel of people wanting you, basically.
Amazing. And so when I use the, because we're recording this, actually, it's just after the full moon. The full moon took place this morning in the wee small hours. Have I missed the boat, or is it still okay to do it on the day of, even just past exactly?
Within 3 days, you're fine. Within 3 days.
Okay. So it was the same with the same with moonology, what we do. All right. Well, I'm going to say you've given us 3 things. That's absolutely brilliant. So with rosemary and cilantro or basil, do you literally just put it in the water? If you're not having a shower, you can rub it on yourself if you're having a shower, but otherwise you just soak in it. It's like you're in a soup.
Yeah, you can do that. Or if you want the herbs to be even stronger on your bath, you can boil them first. You can put a little bit of water in the stove and then add the herbs and let them boil until it kind of like removes the juice and the color of it. And then you can put that water in the bath.
Amazing, Wendy. Amazing. Okay. So, okay, I've got a question about all this. Now, just say you are... We'll stick with the applying for a job because, it's nice and general and a lot of people are interested in that sort of stuff. Just say you're applying for a job and you really, really want it. So you're going to use the cilantro to remove the obstacles and to give you a better shot of getting this job. Is it manipulative?
I always find this perception of brujeria and witchcraft very interesting. Yes and no. I think that if you are, and this also goes with people's ethical system, is like a very good question, actually, because if you are asked, let's say you are looking for a job and you say, I want the job that person has, that is very manipulative. Yeah. But if you're saying, I want a job that is going to take care of the needs of my family, that is going to give me flexibility, that is going to give me peace, where I'm going to have the ability to use my skills and make a difference in the world, that is not manipulative. So when we are looking for jobs, or we're looking for a new house, or looking for a new relationship, what is recommended is that we list what we're seeking, and we're open to the possibility that the universe, God, Goddess, whatever you call it, will provide you with what you need, not necessarily what you want. And also, just because we see that somebody may be having a blast in a specific kind of job, that doesn't mean that it's going to be good for us. So what we want to do is that we're going to be enchanting or spell casting and saying, I would like to have an opportunity that provides me with all this, or even better, so that we're leaving the path for the possibility and we're not being manipulative. Because there's consequences, right? Like, I think a lot of witches believe in the law of 3. I don't. I wasn't raised like that. I was believing the law of consequence. Everything that we do has a consequence. If you're acting from a positive intent, there's going to be a consequence. If you're acting from a negative intent, there's going to be a consequence. So what we want to do is that we want to ride that positivity that is created when we're coming from a place of being much more conscious about our needs and the impacts that we have in the world. And that in return is going to have a positive consequence.
Okay. 2 things. I better write them down so I'm going to forget. Firstly, just to continue with the question about manipulation and jobs, what about, so it's not you want that person's job, it's you want a job that's good for you, but what about if you've seen something advertised online, maybe there's 500 people going for it. Is that okay to do your magic?
Yes, but you can say, I would like this job or something better for me. So if it's that job, maybe that's the job. And if it's not the job, then you're open it to say something better will give you the possibility of attracting something better. And for example, like I was in the corporate world for 20 years. I've been a bruja full time since 2021. But before that, I was a senior director of operations in technology. And I stayed in companies for a couple of years, right? Because I had a director role. But when I was looking for jobs, I always ask to be shown the jobs that will be the right ones for me. I actually use a pendulum to ask, or some sort of divination to ask if it was for me. Or I was shown to ask the jobs that will take me to the job I needed. So in some occasions, I went to the interviews and they were interviewing me for a specific role, but it turned out that another role that was perfect for me will be showing up. And then they will be calling me when that job was open. I think actually two of my jobs were like that. I enter the company as soon as I enter, like, oh, I'm going to be working here. And then they will tell me, no, this job is not for me. Like, no, I'll be back. I don't know when, but I'll be back. And just within, I don't know, a month or so, that's what happened. So we can have that a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of trusting. I think that we have to trust, especially it's hard if you don't have a job or if you are going through a situation, if you don't have the abundance or if you don't have the support, like if you're going through a difficult time, sometimes it's hard to trust, but it is on the difficult times when we have to trust the most. It is on difficult times where we have to believe the spirit is going to provide, that the universe is going to provide. And in the case of the Mexican tradition, we work a lot with our ancestors. Like for us, our guides are our ancestors. We don't do deity work, or at least I don't, right? We do work with our ancestors, and we have to trust that the people that came before us are showing up for us, because all they want is that we are okay. All they want is that we have what we need. They're proud of us. They love us. They open the path for us because thanks to them, we're alive. We're almost an extension of our ancestors, right? So when we're going through a difficult time, we have to trust that they will show up. And we also have to be willing to receive, because in our own human condition, sometimes the opportunities are coming and showing, and we're not really receiving because we're having a little bit of hard time of trusting and receiving. So
yeah, I mean, I'm just imagining my ancestors sometimes watching me. Do they just sit there going, oh my God, what's she doing? Why is she doing this? I mean, do they get like that, these poor people up there in other world?
Well, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Maybe.
Sometimes, wasting time, for example,
I think in vocations is like that. I can definitely feel the complaints of some of the members of my family, but for the most part, not really, because when the soul leaves the body, there is a process of transmutation to enlightenment. So they are really not seeing us with the same eyes of humanity. And in humanity, we can have a really big level of love, but we also have a big level of judgment. Like that's part of human condition. And when the soul is going through the transmutation all the way to integrate into source, it starts changing perspectives. It starts realizing that what we thought was important is not really that important. And it's much more about enjoying or experience in the world and being in love and being in light and being in community. So I think that, at least for my experience and for all the ancestral work that I've done, but I mean, sometimes there's a little bit of that, but most of the time it's just support. Not all ancestors are great ancestors. Some ancestors are still going through the process of healing of their humanity, but after they reach into that point, they're just very loving.
And so, when you say you work with your ancestors, how far back do you feel you're going? I mean, most of us have a concept of maybe, of our parents, our grandparents. Some of us might be lucky enough to know about our great-grandparents. If we've done a family tree, we might even know our great-great-grandparents. But at some point, most people don't know that much. Are we going all the way back through our lines?
Yes. The way that works for me and the way that I teach my students is when you are in the need of something, if you are looking for something, if you're looking for support, if you're looking for help, you're going to imagining that you're opening your living room for somebody to show up. And you're not predisposing who's going to show up, but you're going to specify certain rules of connection. You're going to say, our boundary is going to be the next 15 minutes so that I feel safe and you feel safe. I am only going to open the space to the ancestors that want the best for me and love, and they're not ragey, cranky, vicious ancestors.
Not so the bad ones who are still processing their SHIT.
Exactly. We make these specifications of who we are looking for. Or sometimes for a lot of us that are healers, one of the things that we can do is that we understand that when we heal ourselves, we heal our ancestors, right? When we are healing our own wounds or our own trauma, we're healing past, present, future, multiple dimensions. That's what we believe. So if you are in a space where you have energy for healing, you can just sit down, do this sitting down in your imaginary library or living room and say, who wants to show up so that I can do some healing for you? I can heal myself so that I heal you. And then you're open to whoever is showing up. And sometimes it's grandmother, sometimes it's grandfather, sometimes it's somebody that is many generations ahead. And if you have skills of mediumship, sometimes you can hear their names and their stories. I've had a lot of situations where I have confirmed with my family when they show up who they are. I go and like ask, oh, hey, who is this person? And they tell me. And then we just establish that kind of connection. And it's a collaboration. It's just like with everything, right? We don't go on demand. We just ask if they want to work with us and we can collaborate because our healing is their healing and because they love us.
And, what sort of springs to mind there? I mean, I was joking about, if I'm sitting on the couch wasting my life or whatever. But, there are some people, like I'm getting visions now. I can't even remember which film. It was a film or a TV series where might have been Breaking Bad, where there was this woman and she was in a cocaine frenzy and she was like, or whatever it was, meth or whatever they have in Breaking Bad. I think it was that show. I can't remember, to be honest, who might have been like practically dead from a cocaine overdose, this wild weekend of snorting lines of coke and sweating and filthy and, making all sorts of bad choices. I mean, are they watching when people do stuff like that? And then they really must be. Are they tearing their hair out? Or, you're saying they've got a more enlightened perspective, but are they seeing that kind of stuff as well as when we go and we're nice to people? And
yeah, everything. But I have certain boundaries. Like, for example, I have with my ancestors that they're not allowed when I'm in the bathroom, when I am in the bathroom, and only certain ancestors are allowed in my daughter's room. Like, I have like very specific boundaries that I have created through our collaboration and through our connection. But for example, the kitchen is fair game. If I am in the kitchen and somebody wants to come and have a conversation with me, just how we will do it in Mexico, because for us, the kitchen is the center of the house. Like, we love people to food. We cook for everybody, right? Or a lot of us, at least. Like, if anybody wants to come and talk to me or see me, my boundaries are, if I'm in the car by myself, you can talk to me. If I'm by myself in the grocery store, you can talk to me. If I'm with Luna, and that's my time with Luna, my daughter, which is Moon, by the way. And if I am in the kitchen, you can just call me. Like, I just sometimes like sit down and I leave a cup of coffee, cafecito, right? I leave a cup of coffee, and I say, whatever ancestor wants to come and sit down with me and have a conversation, here's your coffee and this is mine. And then we just have this talks and it's beautiful.
Oh my God, I'm going to do that. I'll just make sure I lay down the rules about someone,
right.
The same level of light as me or higher. Okay, that's amazing.
It's I think when people start working with their ancestors, when they start establishing this relationship with the people that came before them, you never feel alone again, because you know that an entire support systems, it's there for you. Lines and lines and lines of people behind you, supporting you and loving you. And you were talking about, sitting down on the couch and wasting your time. But just imagine how happy some of those ancestors must feel to the fact that somebody from their lineage can actually sit down on the couch and do nothing. Because some of those ancestors may have never had a break. Especially the women, right? If they were living on their patriarchy or certain rules or certain ways, they didn't have the opportunity to do nothing. Yeah. So some of them may not be judging. Some of them may be applauding. Every time they are taking a break, it's like, yes, somebody's finally taking a break. Somebody's finally sleeping. Somebody's finally meditating. Somebody's finally being able to provide that time for themselves.
Okay. I don't want to give myself a bad reputation. It's currently
no. I'm just like I'm like that in general. Like every not for you, but like in general, like, we have that guilt sometimes.
Yeah, no, I get it. I was just going to say, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon here in London. I started work at 7 a.m. today. So I don't know how many hours that is, but it's a few. So I will be entitled to a break tonight on the couch.
So when you sit down on the couch, you're like, hey, ancestors, I'm taking my break. Celebrate it.
Exactly. Okay, so as I said, we are moving towards the full moon. So therefore, we are in the waxing cycle of the moon as this podcast goes live, not as we're recording. That's why I'm getting confused. As you are listening to this podcast, we are in the waxing cycle of the moon and headed towards the full moon. So what I'm thinking is that in my tradition, the waxing cycle is about going for what you want, and so I'm thinking, well, roses are going to be good for magnetizing what you want in, I suppose. And then I sort of feel like the removal of obstacles is going to be always useful, but especially useful at full moon and the waning cycle, which is when we let everything go. How am I doing? And how dangerous is a little bit of knowledge here?
I think that if you are entering a space of calling upon support, if you're coming from a place, and I mean, I know that you will, right? But anybody that is listening to this, if you're coming from a place that is not a place of manipulation, if you're coming from a place that is a place of recognizing and respecting your human needs, because everybody needs a job, anybody needs love or abundance, and maybe it's not a job, maybe it's a business, right? But recognizing that you're coming from what I believe is a birthright. We have the birthright of abundance. We have the birthright of love. We have the birthright of joy. We have the birthright of being aligned to source, to God, Goddess. So as long as you're coming from that place, it is not dangerous. Plus, you're only having a small relationship with a plant. It's not something bigger where you're opening portals to like different dimensions or something. It's a very mild thing, but it's very effective. It's very, very effective, especially working with Rosemary is very effective.
Okay, so let's just recap then before we talk about where people can find you and how they can work with you. So more of a one-on-one thing rather than what we're doing here today. Okay, we're coming up to the full moon. It's the waxing cycle. When people are listening to this, what should they be doing then with our rosemary and our basil and our cilantro and our roses? Bearing in mind they're still working on their new moon wishes and what they want to manifest. They need to clear those blocks. Is it as simple as do those baths that we talked about?
They can do the baths, or they can simply sit down in reflection and actually write what they want to accomplish on the full moon. And that will be a good time for that. I do want to say that it is great when we can wait for the energy of a specific moon to support us, but sometimes we can't. Sometimes we have to do things right away. And if that's the case, what I will say is connecting to the future moon or to the past moon, whatever moon you feel more comfortable with, like the next full moon or the previous full moon, and ask for the energy of that moon to reactivate within you, right? Because we are in that timeline, whether you want to activate to the past or to the future, and ask that energy to help you in the same way that it will be the vortex if it was within those 3 days of the moon. But reflection will be very good. What is it that you want? Why you want it? And how is it going to make you feel when you get it? And how you're going to know you got it, right? Like being very clear about our goals is very helpful when it comes to creating with magic. So we want to be very clear about this is what I want. I want a new job, but that new job needs to be one that gives me flexibility, that I'm working with people that understands humanity and needs, especially if you're a parent, right? Like I need to work with someone that gets it, that sometimes our kids get sick or you have to go to school with them and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, so what about for anyone who's listening to this going, I love all this, but it's a bit too much for me. I need to work with Wendy. How do they find you? What do you offer? And so on.
You can go to bruja.us, that's BRUJA.us, and you can see all my offerings there. I do several things through the year. I organize events where I work in collaboration with several speakers through the world. We just had one last month that it was called the Witches Allies, where we had 22 different classes for different tools. I think the moon was one of them for the ones that we had. And I work in collaborations with the speakers. We usually have about 4,000 or 5,000 attendees in those events. So through the year, you're going to see them. If you go to my website, you're going to see them. They're free events. I also have a community, which is called Mujer Luna International Coven, where I teach people in a group setting how to reconnect to their magic, how to reconnect to their power, how to establish a relationship with their ancestors, and how to trust in themselves. Particularly for the Latino community, through colonization, we disconnected from that magic. We disconnected from knowing that the wisdom and the life lives inside of our bodies. And we turned that into fear through religion, through the way that our people was treated. But not everybody in my community is Latino. Like, there's a lot of other people that are not. I think at the end, we're all immigrants one way or another. And we have the wound of displacement, like either from our own generations or from previous generations. We have been displaced rather consciously or unconsciously, right? Because we seek for it or we did it, but we're displaced from our land. And our land is also our ancestors. So we disconnected from that ancestor land and we're seeking. It's almost like we're always feeling like we don't fit because we're missing that part, we're missing that portion. So I do a lot of work on that. And I do some one-on-one work, although I don't do a lot of it because running my community and running the events and being a mom, like the priority in my life is having time for my family. I left a very busy, crazy, insane work life. And now that I am getting to build this space to help people, the priority is that, yes, I can help people, but that I also can spend time with my family. So I block, like on the summer, for example, I don't work in the summer. I do a few things like this podcast, which is an honor to be here, but I don't work in the winter either. Like I block 20 days in the winter. I block 20 days in spring and certain things like that, just so that I can be present with my daughter and my husband.
Amazing. So lovely, Wendy. When are you coming back to London?
I'm going to be there from August 15 to the 25th. So I hope that I can see you. I'm going to Glastonbury because I'm organizing a retreat in Glastonbury next year. So I'm going to go and receive the ceremonies myself that we're going to be having on 2026. And I'm also going to Oxford again for some of the astrology classes. And then I'm going to go to London to meet with a few people. Hopefully we can coincide in the time and have a cup of tea.
Amazing. That would be amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And just tell everyone your website again.
Bruja.us. That will be BRUJA.us.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy.